we definitely have people with good attitudes. For whatever reason, we've been very blessed in the fact that the people that are hired at this bank are kind of expected to be nice to each other. And we have a lot of customers that walk in and just say that they came in and they loved the fact that they could tell that we truly were happy.
Frederick with the Amarillo Beautiful Savior Lutheran Church will give her invocation. Pastor?
So thank you. Let us pray. God of grace and God of glory, you who are our Father, we thank you for this day, for waking us up and bringing us here to this place. I thank you, gracious God, for these community leaders. Strengthen them for the work that is before them. Strengthen this community for all that is ahead of us. Fill these leaders with your peace and give them the courage to work for the good of all. I ask your blessing upon Mayor Harple, Commissioner Green, Commissioner Eads, Commissioner Simmons, Commissioner Escamilla, and all who work for the good of this community. Hold them and us in your gracious love for the sake of your Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Pastor, thank you. Will you join me in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Please be seated. Good afternoon and welcome to the regularly scheduled meeting of the Amarillo City Commission held on the third floor of City Hall this Tuesday at 3 p.m. The first item of business on today's agenda is the minutes from the prior meeting. Attached is a copy of those minutes, and those minutes are related to the meeting held on October 3rd, 2012. Are there any additions or corrections to the minutes as presented? Not entertain a motion?
Mayor, I move for approval of the minutes.
I second that motion.
Motion and a second. All those in favor of the minutes signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes with a 5-0 vote. Oh, okay.
Proceed.
All right. Ordinance number 7368. This is the second and final reading of an ordinance changing the zoning of a 11.61 acre tract of Section 62, Block 9, BS&F Survey, Randall County, in the vicinity of Soncy Road, Loop 335, and Charter Avenue, from Agricultural District to General Revenue District for various retail activities. Are there any questions from the audience about this item? Any from the Commission? If not, I'd entertain a motion.
Mayor, I move approval of ordinance number 7368.
Second. Motion and a second. All those in favor of ordinance 7368 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes with a 5-0 vote. Resolution annexation. This resolution closes the public hearing and sets a date of October 30th, 2012 for the first reading of an ordinance annexing 16.35 plus acres of unplatted land to the city in Section 62, Block 9, BS&F Survey, Randall County, Texas, in the vicinity of 34th Avenue and Soncy Road, Loop 335. Are there any additions or any questions about this resolution? I'll entertain a motion.
Mayor, I move we close the public hearing on annexation.
I second.
We have a motion and a second to close the public hearing on this annexation. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes with a 5-0 vote. Resolution of the City of Amarillo Water Conservation Plan. This resolution approves and adopts the required 5-year update to the City of Amarillo's Water Conservation Plan. The plan contains water conservation goals for the city system and also includes strategies to reduce consumption of the water, to improve the efficiency of water use, to increase recycling and reuse, and to prevent water pollution. The plan further includes best management practices to assist in meeting identified targets and goals. Consideration and adoption of this plan is required by the Texas Administrative Code. And we want to get a brief explanation of this, Mr. City Manager.
Certainly, Mayor, and I think probably the best person in the room to do so would be Mr. Emmett Autry. Emmett's our Director of Utilities. I think was the author of the previous plan and certainly responsible for these updates. So, Emmett, if you would, please, sir.
Welcome, Mr. Ryan.
Thank you, Mayor. Of course, the Water Conservation Plan is an ongoing document that is required by the state of Texas that it be updated every 5 years. The last rendition of it was October of 2007, which was rendition number 2. And so the clock has rolled around until it was 5 years old. Staff worked on updating the goals for gallons per capita per day of water usage, defining many of the efforts that are being made by staff and others to emphasize conservation awareness throughout the city. The city has established, Mr. Frigo has established a conservation team that works month in and month out on finding ways to increase conservation awareness. This is required, as I said, by the state of Texas, and so we're presenting it for your consideration today, your approval. I might add that some of the things that in the previous edition of the plan were to be determined as to a date to get things accomplished. Many of those now have been accomplished, and we have defined targets for the future in addition to those that were there in the earlier edition of it. So it's an updating effort that will continue to go on every 5 years. It comes out of an awareness of drought conditions in the late 1990s, and so the state saw the need to try to have an organized approach to achieving conservation methodologies and results. So that's what we're presenting to you today.
Sir?
Ms. Doctor, will this be posted on the city's website so the public can access this conservation plan?
Yes, Commissioner, it will be on there. The current rendition should be on there as we speak, and as soon as this is approved and is signed by the mayor and the city secretary, we'll get it and we'll have it put on to take the place of the older version. Any other questions?
You talked about a little bit about the accomplishments between 2007 and now. Could you name a couple that you're especially proud of?
Well, one of them we just got through talking about is getting it on the website. And another that I'm particularly proud of is that we have had a lot of opportunities through the media, both radio and television, and also the newspaper, to get the message out that way. And we've gone to several different venues over the last few years, setting up a booth for water conservation, getting handouts that speak water conservation out to the people who come to those venues. I myself and Mr. Hartman and others have gone and talked to civic groups, including, if I start naming them, I'm going to leave somebody out, so I guess I better be careful about that. But many different civic groups that we've gone and done presentations for. One thing that we're launching very soon is as soon as it gets Mr. Frigo's blessing, I have just about finished the PowerPoint that will be titled so many, I don't know the number yet, 75 ways, let's say, to reduce your water bill. And it's all about water conservation. And the emphasis there is to show the customers how much control they have over the size of their water bill and things that they can do to reduce the size of that water bill, and to show that it is a good investment for them to do so. So without going into greater detail, those are some of the things that we've been doing and will continue to do.
Mr. Rodriguez, it also looks like from our standpoint, there's other things that we will be required to do, like look at our landscape ordinance revision. That's one of the items listed. There's other things that we'll continue to work on in the next 5 years, so we won't obviously just wait until this 5-year period is up, as we did in the last 5 years.
Absolutely. And actually, the work on what you have before you today started several months back as far as coming up with the proposed new plan. But this whole effort is an ongoing thing, and we feel like it needs to be an ongoing process in order to get the conservation awareness really embedded in everybody's minds and make it a natural way of thinking.
We had a really tough year last year through your efforts and the city staff and other promotions. We saved 8 to 9 million gallons a day average. Do you think we can do things without having that kind of a catastrophe presented? Will we continue to do that in the long term? What's it going to take to do that?
Well, I really believe that we've got to have a consistent application of the concept of conservation going out in whatever venues available to us. I failed to mention the school system. That's another way, especially the 4th and 5th grade students. They're very impressionable, and if you can show them in a way that really makes an impression on them, we hope they'll go home and tell Mommy and Daddy that they need to turn the water off a little sooner or something like that. But I know that seems to me humorous, but it may not be to some people. But it's a reality. If we can teach the children at that age the importance of conserving natural resources, especially water, which is one that absolutely is necessary for life, and which we have a finite amount out there in the Oglala aquifer, and we will protect that aquifer and make it last as long as we can. So any opportunity that we can get to put the word out there, and I'm looking forward to being able to go to libraries and other places and present the how many ways to lower your water bill ideas. It's going to be about 75 when I get through checking off the PowerPoint presentation. It'll have a number, something like 75 ways to lower your water bill. I think people are interested in lowering their bills.
Just one other comment is we've touched a lot on the demand side, but on the supply side, of course, we've got to certainly give you credit for Potter County Wellfield, the Mesa water that has been acquired. Those are huge goals that have been accomplished.
Absolutely, and thank you for bringing that up. I probably missed the opportunity to talk about it already. I would like to just express my appreciation to the mayor and commission, city manager, previous commissioners who helped us to get to the point that we could launch that project some time ago, and now 2.5 years or so. Excuse me. And we are in much more solid position now to supply water to meet the demands that are there. 2011 would have gone a lot better if we had had the new well field in place at that time. But at the same time, I think that 2011 was an object lesson for us. It showed us how bad it could get. And I give praise to the staff that managed to keep the system going under those conditions. It was extreme. It's hard to describe adequately. We simply were running everything we had 24 hours a day. So it helped us to see what we could do when we really had to. But thank you very much. We don't want to do that again. Thank you for the extra 20 million gallons per day that we have that we did not have at that time.
That's due to the quiet efforts of your staff and yourself and all the people that dedicate a lot of time. I still enjoy telling people that you're the longest term employees in the city. I think you went to work for the city when I was age 14.
That's probably about right, Mayor.
Then left a little bit and came back.
Went away, came back. I couldn't get Amarillo off my mind.
Well, the application of your wisdom, your experience, and mentoring the people under you we can't quantify what that means to the city, so thank you.
I'll give the credit to the people who work for the city and utilities division.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure to be able to work with them and with all of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the audience in regard to the conservation plan or from the commission? If not, we entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve and adopt the City of Amarillo Water Conservation Plan for 2012.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor of the resolution for the city water conservation plan signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes with a 5-0 vote. Resolution notice of intention to issue certificates of obligation series 2012A. This resolution approves and authorizes the publication of a notice of intention to issue certificates of obligation series 2012A in a principal amount not to exceed $6,900,000. These certificates are to be issued for the purpose of acquiring, improving, and constructing municipal drainage facilities, equipment, and related items. This issuance is as considered in the approved fiscal year 2012-2013 budget and will be repaid with revenue generated by the drainage utility and include an ad valorem tax pledge to ensure the city receives the most favorable ratings possible, which will result in a net savings to Amarillo residents. And do we want to make a presentation or any questions about this from the audience?
Mayor, might just briefly summarize again this one, the following item for projects and purchases that were included in your budget, which was recently approved and as of last week is in effect. We do have Mr. Frigo, our Assistant City Manager for Finance, and Mr. Stephen Adams, City's Financial Advisor with Specialized Public Finance, available for any questions that you have.
Does anybody have any questions? I think it's significant to note that this enables us to take advantage of a match grant of $1.7 million from TxDOT that has a time concern. And us being able to do this at this time allows us to leverage that money into our work project, correct?
That is correct, Mayor.
Okay. Very important. And I also think it's important to note that while we pledged ad valorem tax, we will repay this with revenue. And we might get a comment on that from Dean or from Stratton, because that has allowed us to get a lower rate, saving the citizens a considerable amount of money. And while the revenue stream from the fee will pay this, that's correct, we were able to get a more favorable rate in this first issuance that we've never had this kind of issuance. Could we have you comment about that, please?
Well, excuse me. The mayor and commission, the drainage fee just started literally last week, October 1st. So it's kind of an unproven revenue source, although we feel very good about the revenue source, and we'll be able to prove it up very shortly. In order to get the very best rate for the city, we would also recommend the pledge of the ad valorem tax. That gets us the most cheapest financing, probably saves us, $250,000 over the life.
Yes, $250,000.
And there will be sufficient monies easily in the drainage fund to repay this debt.
We also,
I might add to that this is what provides the mayor and the commission the opportunity to access the city's AAA credit rating under general obligation debts.
Thank you. Well put. The city enjoys a AAA rating on its general obligation debt and on its water revenue debt recently. But again, this is an unproven revenue stream at this point, and we feel the additional pledge will really help the issue.
we understand that is giving us uncomparable rates at this point. We've never had rates this low for any.
These are historic low rates. I don't know if even back in the 60s rates were this good. So if there ever is a good time to issue debt, these rates are it.
So we are borrowing money from TxDOT. We're getting the lowest rates, and we're getting these projects underway that are critical to the infrastructure.
Yes.
Great. Okay. Anybody have any other questions? Any comments? Any questions or comments from the audience? Or again from the commission? Not, I'd entertain a motion.
Mayor, I move that the notice of intention to issue certificates of obligation series 2012A be approved.
I second that motion.
A motion and a second for the resolution notice of intention to issue certificates of obligation series 2012A be considered. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes with a 5-0 vote. Resolution Notice of Intention to Issue Certificates of Obligation Series 2012B. This resolution approves the authorization and publication of the Notice of Intention to issue Certificates of Obligation Series 2012B in the principal amount not to exceed $2,790,000 for the purposes of acquiring rolling stock equipment, vehicles, and related items for the city fleet. This issuance is as considered in the approved fiscal year 2012-2013 budget and will be repaid with revenue generated by the Municipal Garage Fund and includes both an ad valorem tax pledge and a solid waste disposal pledge to ensure the city receives the most favorable rates possible, which will result in net savings for Amarillo citizens. Again, I think it's good to comment for the understanding of everybody present why we've separated those. Would you all make a comment about why those are separated? And then how these eventually will be not necessary because of the fees charged to each department to renew this fee.
Thank you, Mayor. The drainage fee is only a pledgeable revenue to a drainage project, and this second financing was a replacement to our fleet. We got behind in fleet replacements. Mr. Rice can speak to that in the last few budgets, and this will hopefully catch us up with some of the bigger pieces of rolling stock. And again, you can't pledge drainage revenues for this general fleet replacement. Now, inside the drainage, we are purchasing fleet for the drainage specifically, but this rolling stock on item 6 would not be part of the drainage utility. It will be repaid by municipal garage revenues. The municipal garage charges all the user departments a rental, and from those rental fees, that will cover the payment of this debt. The pledge is a $1,000 pledge of the sanitation revenue. So once that pledge is over, it will all be the garage fund that pays for it. It also includes an ad valorem tax pledge, but we do not intend to use ad valorem taxes for this issue. This will be a 5-year issue, so we never issue debt that has a longer life than the underlying equipment. The equipment will easily last 5 years. These are large rolling stock. So this will be a much shorter issue, and we hope to get this financed at 1% or maybe even less.
Great. I think a comment that's important for people to understand, too, is we're taking advantage of something the city really cherishes, and that's that AAA bond rating. We're one of, as I understand it, 13 cities in Texas and 138 nationwide that enjoy that bond rating. It is a better bond rating than the federal government has at this point. Is that not correct?
That is very true. And if you add the AAA revenue bond, we're on a very short list.
So having both those revenues available at AAA is just extraordinary, isn't it?
It's very unusual.
Well, I think that points to the fiscal responsibility of the staff and of the prior commissions, and certainly reflects on the ability for our citizens to maintain a lower tax rate and have a great benefit. Do you know roughly what this will save in issuance, which is
thanks, Stevens here. He thinks it'll save roughly $100,000.
Incredible difference. So thank you very much for your efforts and for keeping it in that position. I give you a lot of credit for that, Mr. Frigo.
Oh, thank you.
Any other comments? Then any questions or comments from the audience or from the commission? If not, I'd entertain a motion.
Mayor, I move approval of the resolution of the notice of intention to issue certificates of obligation series 2012B.
Second. A motion and a second for resolution notice of intention to issue certificates of obligation series 2012B. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes with a 5-0 vote. Appointments to boards and commissions. Appointments needed to the following board. The Board of Hospital Managers. Do we have any nominations for those positions?
Mayor, we do. On the Board of Hospital Managers, 2 of our current members are rotating off. And that would be Muriel Barnes and Greg Graham with our thanks. In place of those, we would like to appoint Mr. Mark Loxton and Mr. Smith Ellis. And the third member, Chuck Speed, is eligible for reappointment.
I second.
We have a motion and a second for those appointments as mentioned. Do we have any questions from the audience about those appointments? From the commission? Not all those in favor of the appointments as stated by Commissioner Reed signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes with a 5-0 vote. Number 8 is the consent agenda. It's recommended the following items be approved and that the city manager be authorized to execute all documents necessary for each transaction. A is the purchase of mowers and utility carts. B is the award of Edgefield Addition Sewer Main Rehabilitation Project. C is the acceptance of emergency solutions grant awards. D is the approval of Tank Industry Consultants Professional Services Agreement Amendment number 1. Do we have any items that need to be removed for separate consideration by the Commission? If not, do we have any comments on those items from the audience or from the Commission? I'd entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for the consent agenda as presented. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes with a 5-0 vote. We now have a presentation. I think we get our distinguished staff member back up here for a presentation on 2012 Every Drop Counts, Be Water Wise Update. Mr. Autry.
Thank you, Mayor. As you can see on the monitors, we have updated the data to include the month of September just ended. And for those who have not seen this presentation before, the red line indicates the 2011 water usage experience. As you can see, it's far above anything else up there. The blue line, or greenish blue line, represents an average of 6 years of information and gives us an idea of what a normal year would be. Although I don't think that in the water business normal has any place. It's always changing. The black line represents this year, 2011, and we had a spike for 2 months, July and August. In fact, in July we set the single month all-time record for the month of July, surpassing even July of 2011. So we add another month to it, and we're getting ready to, of course, to go into the fall and winter, and I believe that we're going to suspend the presentations unless by popular demand I'm asked to come back. Suspend them until next spring, probably April or May, Mr. City Manager. That sound reasonable? When we start to see the demands come back up again. I'm glad to see that it has returned to the normal line, or the average line. On the next sheet, and I believe I only brought 2 of my shown. Oh, there it is. Excuse me just a moment. Okay, what you see up there is just some data that I put together looking over the month of September for a period of several years there, 8 or 9 years. And what I've got in the first column is the year, the September of 06 through 12. The center column is the amount of water used in September of the given year in terms of billions of gallons of water. And you can see it varies all over the place. Trying to compare it to what the rainfall was in the time span of July, August, and September. I put those previous months in there because one month, if you have a lot of rain, it can have an impact on the next month or the month after. That's what we've seen anyway. You see the rainfall in those time periods, and with the exception of 2007, 2011, and now 2012, during those 3 months, we typically got 10 to 12 inches of rain. I would say that 2006 and some of the others there, if you look at our long-term average, you would not see that the long-term average is that high for those 3 months. It'd be somewhat less, because we did have some wet years there. I'm ready to see some more of those. And then on the next and final...
Wait just a second.
Oh, I'm sorry, excuse me.
If I ask a question or a comment, am I looking at this right? I'm looking at September 2012.
Yes, sir.
And the water produced or water used with only 4.7 inches of rain.
does this mean that possibly we're learning to conserve water when you compare that to 07, 08, 09, when there was much more rain, and yet about the same amount of water consumed and used?
Right. And thank you for asking that question, because that question came to my mind when I was putting it together. When you break it out by months, Commissioner Sims, you see that of that 4.7 inches, 3.25 inches fell in September. And so it had a direct impact on the current month, because we've had 3.25 inches of rain in last month. So, and it was scattered throughout the month of September, which shows up on, unless there's other questions on the slides you've seen already. The third slide. If you look at that, if that's September, and those vertical lines represent rain events, anywhere from a few hundreds up to over an inch of rain. And the red line represents the maximum temperature day by day, and the blue line represents water usage in millions of gallons. So you can see that in September we have a cooling trend. The general direction of the water usage is downward, but it varies. If we get a rainfall, it drops off, and then a few days after the rainfall, if we don't get another one, it comes back up. So those, but the main thing I want to point out about this is that the rain events are happening more or less throughout the month, with a gap in there in the last third of the month. We've been cool. That's another thing. We didn't put the low temperatures on there. That has an impact as well. So, but at the same time, we have the fair, right? We have the fair in September, so it's supposed to rain in September, and it did. But it rained interestingly in small amounts throughout the month.
So I think your answer to Commissioner Sims' question is no, not really. We're not learning how to conserve. It's just based on the rainfall and the low temperatures?
It's not a direct relationship. The September figure for rainfall, for example, this year was the highest September rainfall we've had in several years. So it was a factor. It was not a factor like the 3-month period was, though. And I noticed, and some of the others I looked at, when I looked at September alone, and I thought, oh my gosh, they didn't get that much rain, but we didn't use that much water either. What's with that? And I went back and looked at July and August, and I said, oh, that's what's with that. They got good rains the month before, and the benefit carried over into September. And I'm still not sure if I actually answered your question.
Close enough.
Close enough. Okay. Are there any questions about the presentation?
Any from the audience? Thank you, Mr. Usher, very much for your presentation.
Thank you.
Well, that concludes today's agenda. Of the Amarillo City Commission, it's our customary at this time to allow citizens of the community with matters not on today's agenda pertaining to city policy, programs, or services to speak to the Commission. And the floor is now open for such comments. Would anyone like to come forward, please? How are you, Mr. Jewett? If you come forward, state your name and address, please.
Yes, my name is Jeffrey Jewett. I own Jackson Company Taxi, and we now acquired 2 other companies in the last couple of weeks. If you can I present a couple of documents to y'all?
Certainly. If you can give them to Mr. Frigo.
Right. Well, one reason you'll find these are bright orange is part of this has to do with safety. So I didn't want nobody to misunderstand that we couldn't see the colors.
We can see them.
All right. Thank you, sir. Okay, actually we'll make this short and sweet, and you folks can go ahead and discuss this among yourselves on the reading, because it'll take you longer than the time we have for the time. First of all, one problem we have, we've got a gentleman that used to own a cab company named Jim O'Malley. He got shut down by the police department several weeks ago because the cars were in horrible condition, didn't run right, they broke down many times, so they weren't in business. That made the cab company available for anyone to go ahead and sign up for. So 3 cab companies applied for it, and I was granted that particular name. So I now own Checker Cab and also Yellow Cab. Now, that's the simplicity of that. The only problem we have is he doesn't seem to understand that when the city does something, the police department does something, that's supposed to be a rule. So hopefully they can work that out. And I'm sure you folks can kind of help them a little bit, possibly. The other problem I have, which is probably very simple, and I think would be very easily proved, and may actually be in the city ordinance, because I read it twice last night. I couldn't find it exact, but in a sense it's there, because when you talk about safety, but these other cab companies seem to think because we choose to spend almost $400 extra per car to put backup beepers and special lights, as far as safety lights and reflective strips, both red, white, and yellow on our cars. They seem to classify that as discrimination against their cab services under their cab colors. Now, in every state I've ever ridden in or drove in, most cities and cab companies and police departments as well, is very highly recommended and appreciative for any person that goes that extra mile for safety. So all I'm asking is that if we don't have it in the ordinance, let's please add it to the taxi ordinance that there should not be any right for any of the cab company to complain or condemn a cab company that's going to spend the money to put safety first in all aspects.
Thank you. I will refer that, if we could, to the city manager to deal with, and certainly we'll be in contact with you about it.
I appreciate that. And also you'll find a pack in each one of those. You'll see a picture of the new yellow cab, and you'll see samples of all the labels that we use for safety. So everything's organized. God bless you.
Thank you very much, sir. Appreciate the information. Anyone else, please, I invite you to come forward. If not, we'll move back to executive session. Thank you for your attendance and participation today.
Know before you enroll.
If a school or training program sounds too good to be true, it probably is.
Do your research. Check out several schools before you decide on which one's right for you.
Never sign up the first day you visit a college. It's important to compare prices and sleep on them.
Be careful about taking on a lot of debt. You don't want to ever sign anything you don't understand.
Avoid any school that guarantees employment after you graduate.
Remember, know before you enroll.
This message has been brought to you by Amarillo College.